We normally think of criticism as disapproval of someone or something based on perceived faults or mistakes, period. But there are actually 4 types of criticism. Constructive criticism. So what do you think of the spaghetti?
Honestly, it could use some salt.
Unintended criticism.
The spaghetti would be a lot better if you'd salt the water first.
Projected criticism, out of character.
Just perfect. Bland spaghetti after a crappy day.
Projected criticism, chronic toxic.
How many more years do you think I'll be waiting for a decent plate of spaghetti around here?
Ouch. Hurts, don't it? Listen, if you promise not to criticize me, I'm going to not only tell you, but show you the most effective responses, especially toward the criticism that comes from the man in your life.
You and me, we could be on top of the world.
Hi, I'm Ramona Zabriskie. Women in over 70 countries think of me as their marriage mentor, and I would love nothing more than to be your wife saver as well. And today, as we go into the 4 types of criticism that you may be on the receiving end of, keep in mind that the next time you get that feeling of really you're criticizing me kind of gut reaction, that it's helpful to immediately repeat in your mind this mantra. Criticism is not the only truth. Criticism is only one person's viewpoint. Now, when you really can get that into your mind and heart, you are going to be in a better frame of mind to respond intelligently and productively rather than from the gut, that kind of gut reaction, which never turns out well. You never get what you're really hoping for when you do that. So, let's go into it. The first type of criticism, and the one that everybody uses to justify their critique, even though it doesn't usually qualify as constructive criticism. If you're trying to improve yourself, it's really nice as always to hear good things about yourself, but it isn't really helpful. The person who's chasing excellence really wants to know is, what can I do better? So, constructive criticism is only truly constructive if it's sought out. It also has to be well thought out and presented objectively, level-headed, sans the emotion and drama. You can also bet that the person who is offering truly constructive criticism is going to clarify or highlight the positives as well as the negatives. And they'll make it clear that they're just offering their take on things. And you will come away feeling supported rather than judged. What do you think of the spaghetti?
Well, I love the sauce. It's really flavorful. But honestly, you know me, and I think the water could use more salt. Are we running low? Can I put it on the grocery list?
Now, with constructive criticism, if it's truly constructive criticism, if you think it has merit, then go ahead and use it, right? Incorporate it into your life. But if you think it's inaccurate, if that constructive criticism you sought out, you asked for, it was well thought out, it was presented humbly and supportively and all of that, and you think it's inaccurate, well, then don't use it, but it might be worth considering and maybe even investigating why or what made him see things that way.
Really? More salt? What makes you say so? Did your mom use a lot of salt in her spaghetti?
Or ignore it. Unintended criticism. Some guys offer what they call constructive criticism, but the difference is you didn't ask for it. With unintended criticism, he doesn't intend to insult you or to demean you in any way. what he really believes, what he intends, is that he is helping you. He really believes he's offering or teaching you something that's going to make your life better or easier. But because of the timing or the circumstances, maybe his tone or phrasing is kind of off, or you're just feeling a little sensitive on your end, then you take it as criticism meant to exert superiority over you. Now, with unintended criticism, what are you going to do about it? If you don't really agree with it, well, rather than lash back or think the worst of him, you could try a more accepting kind of approach where basically you just let it slide off your back.
Thank you for your concern. I'm going to chew on that.
Or help him to be more considerate in his approach by unemotionally teaching him what you really need.
I know you mean to be helpful, and I appreciate that. But now is not the best time.
Or you go back later and tell him,
You probably couldn't see it, but the way you said that, it hurt.
or of course, you can always IFF, ignore, forgive, forget. Projected criticism out of character. Projected criticism is an emotional negative response to something you have done. So if someone's ranting about how irresponsible you are, it's because you did something, probably inadvertently, that really set them off, that made them feel threatened emotionally. How you respond now is going to depend on whether it's an occasional kind of thing, sort of out of character, out of the blue, or whether this is a chronic thing, a pattern in your relationship. If it is from stresses or from worries outside of the relationship and it comes at you and you're like, whoa, that's not like you kind of feeling, it really feels out of character for him, then there's no reason to react defensively. You can see that criticism as a concern for him. You can be concerned for him and you can treat him with care.
Where did that come from? You sound awfully stressed.
Or maybe let him know that what he said or how he said it smarted.
Hey, you probably couldn't see it, but that really stung.
Or IFF, ignore, forgive, forget. Projected criticism, chronic toxic. If it's chronic toxic, though, if it's coming from envy, insecurity, or anger, don't be afraid to challenge the mistreatment. To do that, you're going to use the 4 S's. Shine a light on his attitude, his behavior. State your grievances. Speak for what you need and stand by what you've said. Remember, of all the forms of criticism, chronic toxic criticism is especially disrespectful. Some men may actually feel that they have a right to criticize their woman or their wife, especially the toxic criticizer. And if that describes the dynamic in your relationship, I am really concerned for you. In fact, I think that dynamic is so concerning, so deep and complex that it deserves its own tutorial. So I'm going to do part 2 of this same idea about criticism, but we're going to focus on toxic, chronic criticism, including the 4 cloaks that he uses to hide behind and how to respond to each. We'll also talk about the 3 excuses that you should never accept, as well as the 3 kinds of abuse, so that you can tell the difference between abuse and criticism. They kind of cross over sometimes and it gets confusing. In the meantime, won't you join me for my free live upcoming masterclass Understanding Your Husband and Sons, where we will deep dive into his brain, his body, and his emotional underbelly. I promise it's as enlightening as it is eye-popping. In the meantime, I am so happy to be your wife saver as always. See you next time.